Yes, we can start. Thank you so much for your patience. And thank you so much for being here. I think the rest of the people who registered in the webinar are going to be are going to connect um, eventually. But we are recording this webinar. We are also um, uploading this webinar into our website and our YouTube channel. So there's going to be access for the information that we're going to be sharing. And with no further ado, I am going to give the floor to Angela. We're here with Angela, the Global Coordinator of Women4GlobalFund, to give the welcoming words and to run us through the agenda for today's webinar. So Angela, you have the floor.
Thank you, Andrea, and also thanks to all participants that are today here with us. Good morning, good evening, good night from this side of the world. We're very happy to be connected with you and see some very familiar faces. Today, we're going to talk about a bit of what is, again, Women4GlobalFund goals and mission. As you know, we are in a current moment in which we need a lot of support from our advocates, our partners, our friends, to navigate the current situation as we understand better how to prioritize gender transformative components within the Global Fund. We are also in a transition phase as a Global Fund, and we are in the very specific and key moment around the replenishment. So we're going to talk a bit about the Asia Pacific Learning and Advocacy Hub, which today we're launching, which we're aiming to have many participants and disseminate it as much as we can so we can strategize together. And we're going to also listen from our colleagues and partners from the Asia Pacific region, which will be sharing the experiences and the engagement from their own perspectives and insights. And afterwards, we will be having also Andrea presenting what is like the communications and the advocacy campaigns we are running on this year, and I'm willing to share this with you too. Next, please. Just very briefly, I'm going to remind like our colleagues. Next, please.
You have the who are
Yeah.
we, right? Okay, please, perfect.
Can you all see the screen, right? I hope, yeah. Also remind that we are this movement, we advocates women in order diversity, advancing gender equality through the Global Fund to fight the 3 diseases. And we are mobilizing to make the Global Fund accountable and to also support our advocates in the ground in the different countries to influence gender transformative programs in the 3 diseases. And our mission is to catalyze the power of women in all diversity and girls to advance gender equality to the Global Fund and to be present in the different decision-making spaces at the national, global, and international level to ensure that our voices are influenced, that our voices are meaningful, and that we are achieving the greatest impact in our communities. Next, please. And I think it's very important for us to also indicate what do we mean by diversity. And when we said women are guests the diversity, this is our strength. And we are welcoming all women, including women living with HIV, TB, and malaria, or affected by the diseases, and women who identify heterosexual, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, intersex, and non-binary. And of course, you can also see here a broader definitions and over how we define our diversity. And this is very important also to keep on working because we know that in this current situation, we are facing the consequences of the gender backlash. And that's why we need to be stronger together. Next, please. And what do we mean by meaningful participation? Probably something that we hear all the time, like we should be in decision-making spaces, we should be sitting at a table. But we are, as Women4GlobalFund, we really want to know that this gives us the power to influence policies, plans, and strategy, specifically within the Global Fund partnership. And this participation should be really equal, informed, representative, and reflecting the outcomes that we want to see for our needs in the health and human rights. The next. And I'm very happy to be launching today. I mean, all this advocacy and learning hub for Asia Pacific. We have been aiming to do this for such a long time. And there's never like a perfect timing, I would say. There's how we advance. And for now, we are really happy to be launching this initiative that is for all of us to keep on working together. And here you can see that the main ideas of why we're doing this is to have mutual visibility, strengthen advocacy efforts, specifically in this current challenging situation for everyone in the local and national levels, and how we can implement more effective, efficient, and also gender transformative HIV, TB, and malaria comprehensive responses and advocacy at all the different levels. Here you can see in this on the screen some of the main things we are sharing as our aim for this year, and of course continue in the next year. But we want to hear from you around these topics. We want to hear and how to connect around the replenishment, gender transformative advocacy, if we have opportunities for capacity building and mentorship. We are very much focusing attention on CLM and how to protect the gains around CLM, and if possible, keep on making it an important pillar of the strategies we're working in the different countries. And of course, all this is based on what we believe it has been working, which is research and evidence-based messaging connected to a lot of storytelling and communications from our partners in the different countries and regions. The next, please. And just like to give a very brief overview, of course, our speakers from the region will know this. Just to share some data and information, we're talking about the Indo-Pacific countries. We also are welcoming the Pacific region. We have also advocates from Central Asia, Southeast Asia. So this is the beauty and the diversity of the countries we are currently here together and willing to also expand more. And here you can see the total investment, life saved, and the economic returns. I'm not going just to repeat all the numbers because there are all those out there. And we are going to be sharing also the slides for the information. But it's very important because some of these specific components, we know that also there's a lot of inequality. There's still a lot of progress that needs to be continuing and strengthening. And women and all the diversity and the girls needs to still be on the forefront of this response in the countries. So we want to show how important the programmatic part and the investment from the Global Fund has been in the past years in the Asia Pacific context. Next, please. And here we can also see like at the map, which make it more visible about the Indo-Pacific region. We will, of course, be having more expansion into other countries, as I mentioned before, in the Asian region. But these are the gains that we need to keep on working. These are the gains that we need to keep supporting. And of course, it's very important for us to know the data so we can better advocate to have more specific and more efficient work. Next, please. Here again, a bit more about the context. We have the most important, like, let's say, largest portfolios. We have India, we have also Indonesia, Pakistan, Thailand, Vietnam. And here we can see some of the most relevant results that we have found for these countries. And we are welcoming also many others for you to be sharing this information with our partners. I think it's relevant for us to know how much we have achieved and how much still need to be done. And it's important for the three diseases to have this information as we continue working for evidence-based and gender transformative advocacy specifically. The next. And also, as we are also in this replenishment year, I think it's important for us to get to know what are the regional contributions and the partnerships. And we know that from 2022, the countries in the Asia Pacific region have collectively pledged over 1.45 billion to the Global Fund, which represents 9% of what has been raised globally. And here we thank so much to the donors that have been supporting. And this is also important for us to know in the context of the advocacy. We are preparing for the replenishment. So we have as main contributors also like Japan, Australia, Korea, Indonesia, and Thailand, which are both donor countries and implementing countries. So thank you very much for those who are putting this signature of being really responsible and committed to the response. Next, please. And just like to just give then the word to our colleagues, wanted to just let you know that we have in the past months and year, we have collected and worked a lot of mentorship programs, equipping our advocates, and we have produced so far 60 advocacy briefs and technical tools that are already available for us to be using. So when we talk about if we have a need to just get information or evidence-based points or key messages that we want to share around so many topics, please visit our website, visit our digital dossier, and contact us so you can access all this information freely. And it's like using this information to just support each other, to knowledge, to spread the knowledge and avoid duplicating efforts. Sometimes there are many things already done, and we have collected that also in a digital dossier for our partners. And we want to share all these advocacy tools that can be accessible for you to contextualize in the Asia Pacific region context. And we are very proud also about our 10-step guide to become effective and efficient country coordinating mechanism members. And next in the upcoming sessions also from the region, we will be having more specificity about how to use this guide. And we are very much happy to share this information with all of you. The next, please. And here now I want to open the floor also for our speaker, and very happy to have you here, Ika. So the floor is yours, and please illustrate us with your insights from your perspective. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Angela. I'm so happy to be here. Hi, good morning, afternoon, evening. My name is Ika, as Angela mentioned. I'm the regional coordinator of Youth Lead, the Young Key Population Network based in Bangkok. We are working in the Asia Pacific region, but I'm originally from Indonesia. I began engaging with the Global Fund process back in 2015-16. At that time, proposal from developing countries like Indonesia largely center around the adult-led organization and key population. Young people, including young key population, had very minimal presence in consultation and also decision-making space, but change was begun. The HIV response in Indonesia had started to recognize the importance of age-specific intervention. I remember when Youth Lead Indonesia, together with Oda Berhak Sehat, began to build the capacity of young key population and develop the advocacy strategies rooted in right-based approach. For the first time, young key population began to participate in national consultation and also the pre-CCM dialogue. With support from the technical partners like UNAIDS, UNFPA, and also the international donors, we received training to better understand Global Fund mechanism and strengthen our advocacy skill. So fast forward to current grant cycle 7, we've seen stronger youth-led advocacy effort in Indonesia, also in the Asia Pacific region, including calls for greater investment in adolescent-friendly services and improved disaggregated data. A few young key population advocates were selected to join country dialogue teams and national technical working group, an important but hard work step forward. Engaging with the Global Fund as a young woman advocate has been both empowering and deeply complex for me. It is a space filled with promise and of transformative change, where our voices can shape funding priorities, challenge systematic inequality, and advocate for community-led response. Yet, it also mirrors the very structural barriers we are working to dismantle. One of the greatest challenges have been navigating system not designing by or for young people, especially young women from key population. We are often asked to prove our legitimacy just justify our presence, and settle for symbolic rather than meaningful participation. Shrinking civic space, funding cuts, and the rise of anti-rights narrative have only intensified this struggle. Today, advocacy demand not only patience, it requires resilience, strategy, and also collective power. Despite the progress we've made, challenge persists. Like tokenistic inclusion, persistent capacity gaps, and limited representation in the final decision-making space is still there. Still, we continue to push and we continue to push for dedicated budget for youth-led activity within the Global Fund grant and for robust accountability mechanism and ensure commitment to youth inclusion are upheld. Yeah, now more than ever, as we head into the aid replenishment, we must keep pushing. The stakes are high, but so is our resolve. Our engagement is not about being included. It's about accountability, justice, and the future of global health. I think that's all for me. Thank you, Angela. Over to you.
Thank you, Ika, for your powerful reflections. I think listening from the youth, listening from the engagement, and still like even if we've seen some progress, there are still many other challenges we need to navigate. And I thank you for representing so well the youth on the region, and happy to also give the next space to our next speaker. So, and I would just ask to you like to give a warm applause and reactions to Ika. So she is like very much influential and powerful from the youth, and happy to be connecting with her. Next speaker is Mangala, and I'm very happy to also introduce her as a program manager at APCASO, but also part of the Women4GlobalFund steering group member. And I know that I know her that she is also in the office now, as I can see. I am guessing you are in Bangkok, but Mangala, the floor is yours, and happy to have you here with us. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Well, it's morning in Bangkok. Thank you, Angela. Thank you to both you and Andrea for putting this together. I know we've talked about this and we've been wanting to do that, but there's never a perfect time. But this does feel like a very opportune time to have this discussion with all that's happening around us. So very briefly, my name is Mangala. As Angela said, I'm the program manager at APCASO, but also I've been privileged to be part of the steering group member of Women4GlobalFund. So I'm very aware of the amazing work that both Angela, Andrea, and the team have been doing, and very often single-handedly, carrying on the work despite a lot of the challenges that comes their way. So just a moment to appreciate that. So thank you so much for that, all that amazing work. So I just wanted to very briefly share our experience engaging mostly in the TB space in the Global Fund processes. I wanted to just start off by sharing some of the broader challenges that we usually face when we're trying to engage, especially when we are trying to push for and have effective community engagement in the TB space. So, and I think a lot of us who have to work in both the HIV space and the TB space are very well aware that the TB space is probably not as organized or easily mobilized as the HIV space, because a lot of reasons, really. One of it is, of course, we haven't been doing that long enough. So a lot of groundwork is needed. And for us in APCASO, as well as ACT AP, which is the activist coalition of TB in Asia Pacific, we've realized that we have had to start from the very ground, at the very beginning level of who do you engage? So when you talk about communities in TB, who are the TB affected communities? The broad definition was sometimes difficult to unpack, and the decision then becomes, who do you engage with? How do you engage with? How do you then strengthen capacities? How do you, and then we move on to identifying the spaces and entry points for engagement. And for us, one of the things that has been very advantageous is that we have a grant from the Global Fund on the long-term capacity building of TB affected communities in the region. And one of the things that I personally feel very important, that is very important in this area of work, is the fact that it has to be long-term. It's not something that you just, you bring communities together, you have one training, and then you say, you know what, now you're ready to engage. That never happens. So that is why it's a very challenging task, because it's long term. Long term means more time, more resources, more other kind of investments. Like, you have to continuously be doing the same thing in order to achieve the result that you want from engagement. So I feel like that is a broader challenge that we always face whenever we say we want to engage with TB spaces. And in some countries, we spend, I don't know, 6 to 8 months just identifying who are we talking about when we're talking about communities. How do we bring them to the table? And then once we've brought them to the table, the discussion around, okay, what is it that they need to be equipped with, Because again, I think along the years, our definition of capacity strengthening or capacity building has been a little too broad, and then so identifying exactly what kind of training is needed, what kind of capacity needs are going to be, strengthened. Because again, from our experience of engaging in Global Fund Grant Cycle 7, yes, engagement happens, but how do we define, what is it, like Angela talked about earlier, what's the definition of engagement? What is meaningful? At which point, right? Because a lot of effort went into mobilizing communities, especially TB affected communities, where you for country dialogues, to bring them together, to come up with a community index, to go into the funding cycle, to go into the funding request. But at the end of it, we needed to ask ourselves a very important question of how much of what we wanted made it to the grant, right? Because just having these suggestions, because that's what it is, no? Just suggestions. Just having the suggestions, making it to the funding request means very little if it's not translated into the grant, into the cost, into what's going to be done in the country for the next 3 years. Who monitors that? All of that discussion we need to have, because otherwise it's going to be like, yeah, so the community wanted ABC. Okay, but did this ABC make it into the grant? And if it did make it, in what form? Is the money for it there? Who's going to monitor that it's going to be carried out? How effective is that? A lot of these discussions. And I feel like right now we are in the space that we can push for something a lot broader than just saying, okay, we need to talk to communities before we do the funding request, because that's just not enough anymore. And one of the things I have also realized when it comes to the gender component of it is that there's an added layer of challenge, right? Of course, in a lot of countries, we all know that there's that whole systemic barrier. It's geographic. It could also be economic. It could be political. A lot of barriers that exist, which we cannot overlook if you want to involve women in these discussions. So it's often, especially in the TB space, what happens is that there's also an added challenge where the TB space is seen or perceived as too technical or beyond comprehension. It's very clinical. Communities won't get it, women won't get it, or people who are on the ground won't get it. So there is that level of ensuring that we need to unpack this. We need to be able to take it to a language that does not lose or does not alienate from those whose experiences are what we want to include in these discussions, right? Because these lived experiences are what we want to do. And in our context, we've been trying to do that through community advisory board on having to be able to input into protocol discussions, into vaccine rollouts. So all of this, so it's not just about calling communities, having a meeting and saying, okay, what do you want? Oh, okay, you want community engagement? Okay, that's just not enough. I think one of the added challenge that we have right now, where everybody is reprioritizing what is it that is considered essential, we need to strengthen ourselves with the technical knowledge that will ensure that okay, you have to be at the table, because just a broad understanding I don't think is sufficient anymore. And I just wanted to bring out two quick points if I have the time. Another realization, and one of the things that came out very strongly in the TRP comments from the last cycle, is gender assessments, for example, when gender assessments are done, in some cases, not in all cases, it's still a very narrow interpretation of what it means by gender. You know, a lot of the gender assessments is not consider all gender. It's still like women and girls. So that itself becomes such a block in ensuring that we are inclusive. And very often, these gender assessments rarely are, effectively translated into well-targeted services or interventions. So again, one of the things that I think is an opportunity for us is whether it's gender assessment or stigma assessment or CRG assessment, how do we use that information into programming and into parameters that we can monitor and we can check on the outcome? Because a lot of times people say, yeah, we've done a gender assessment, but what does that even mean? How is that the result, if at all, is translated into very targeted interventions? And I think you cannot stop at just saying, yeah, but we've done a gender assessment, but how inclusive was the gender assessment? How can you ensure that it's being translated? And the other thing I was asked to talk about is the opportunity. So I just wanted to briefly share. I think I don't have to go into the context of this because everybody knows we are at this very uncertain and very scary times in terms of the funding cuts, whether it's the Global Fund or all the other work that has been done around whether it's HIV or TB or even malaria to a certain extent. And while there is there's a lack of clarity, I think what is very clear to all of us is the fact that when the funding cuts happen, the first thing that's going to be cut are going to be investments that are considered as low priority, and that's going to be community engagement. The money that's going to go first is going to be the money that is supposed to go to communities. And I think now more than ever, our challenge is to safeguard that. And we need to continuously push and stress the importance of investing in communities, right? And now is the best time to do that, like to show that, look, all that has been invested on so far, yes, it's been great and all, but if we continue, if we stop this, then we just go back to square one. So that is why a lot of the work that's being done by Women4GlobalFund or other advocates in around the region, it's so important for us all to continuously to amplify that, to sort of carry that evidence that's been churned out. Because again, we don't need to replicate things, right? Whatever resources is out there, I think it's so important that we take that on and we utilize that and we amplify that to show that, hey, look, all of this is there. Because evidence building is so important. These days, you don't just go and say, yeah, but it's important. And then people will ask, how was it important? Where did it have an impact? All of this is, you can't just go, say, but that's what I feel. If that's not enough, you need to have the evidence to back up how you feel about it. And I think we need to support each other in that. I mean, there are a lot of, especially in the Asia-Pacific region, perhaps sometimes one of the challenges that we face is that we all do our own thing. We do amazing thing, yes, but we also do our own thing. So I feel like now is the time for us to sort of come together and work closely to see, and spaces like Women4GlobalFund is a great place to do that, because a lot of resources are there, but who's bringing it all together? So I just wanted to share that and say that we know a lot of things are already happening in terms of the reprioritization that's happening at the country level. So we need to be more proactive in saying, hey, reaching out to the CCMs and saying, hey, we know this is happening. And so it's not just about waiting for the CCM to reach out to us, but reaching out to the CCMs and saying, this is happening. So, and instead of saying, how can we engage? Perhaps the language we need to use is, this is how we want to engage, right? And for that, we need to be equipped with the kind of tools, with the kind of data, with the kind of evidence. And this is not the time for us to prove why community engagement is important, but we need to prove the value of it. I think I might have taken too much of time, so I'm going to stop here, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mangala. I think you have brought to the discussion so many important points. I was just like, my notes were falling, but I just like to recall some very specific things that you mentioned. I think what we really need and why this space is created now is for us to strategize together, is for us not to duplicate efforts, but rather like collaborate together and have this concrete idea of what we want to do. Is as you said at the end, like not for us to, for people to ask us if we want to be there, is for us to create a space and be there present. And we are working a lot also on the gender assessments, but not as tokenistic or really like only checklists or putting check to the boxes. And there's a lot of work we still need to do to have those comprehensive understandings and the use of the indicators and the use of the information. And as I mentioned before, we have already 60 policy briefs produced. Imagine if we just put all of the briefs and the technical documents that we have in the region and that any other partner will be doing. Like probably what we need to do is be more like concentrated on using the things that we have. And that's why we have also this space to keep on continuing working. And thank you so much also for bringing the voices of TB community, because we know it's also complicated sometimes to navigate the spaces among all competing priorities. And please also feel free to put questions on the chat. We're going to open up a conversation after we give the word to our next speaker. So please feel free to also comment and share questions or ideas within the chat. And something very important also, Andrea will be sharing a bit more later on, is about what do we think about life-saving actions. We hear currently a lot in the current situation about the Grand Cycle 7 reprioritization and adaptations. And Women for Global Fund has put some ideas around what we think life-saving means to us from a feminist perspective. And there's also available resource for us to keep on improving and working together. And we will be happy to also receive your feedback and additional ideas you want to include in this, what life-saving means, how we protect our gender components and how we protect women and all diversity to not being left behind from this current situation. Without further addition, I will just wanted to welcome warmly Anu. I think you are currently in Kuala Lumpur, if I'm not mistaken, but happy to have you here with us. And please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Angela. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. So first of all, I would like to thank the organizer for invitation to speak at this important webinar. So as a transgender woman, as a community advocate, my engagement with the Global Fund has always been deeply personal. And I started to engage with the Global Fund processes since 2011, when Malaysia got their first Global Fund grant. And we know that trans women face significantly higher rates of HIV infection. And this isn't a biological reality, but a social one, which is driven by discrimination that limit access to health, education, employment, and safe housing, pushing many into vulnerable situations. And to highlight that our community has not abstract data points, we are the front lines of both the HIV, TB, or malaria responses and the funding crisis. And as a trans woman, I bring a unique perspective to the decision-making table, one that is often marginalized but is crucial for achieving true gender equality and effective health responses. Having said that, we're still fighting for our visibility and respect. So while for the advocacy, some of the barriers that we face, the first, not only in Global Fund board, but also in any decision-making tables, including the CCMs. Too often we are brought in late or just for visibility, not for influence. Being in the room doesn't always mean we are heard, especially with the rise of anti-gender movement. The second barriers is trans-led and community-based organizations are rarely trusted with direct funding, which limits our capacity to respond to the urgent needs. The third, the current cuts, funding cuts means even allies are now protective of the slice of the funding. So we are seeing more tension, fewer partnership, and less innovation. And the fourth barriers is due to shrinking of resources, we are still asked to justify why trans-specific programming matters, despite decades of evidence and community knowledge. So what we can look forward with all these barriers, so we should create a strategic alliance with now, which is more than ever, we need the feminist solidarity across movement. So the funding cuts cannot be used to pit women's rights against trans rights. And we need to strengthen community-led responses. We can use this moment to push others for direct investment in trans-led initiative. The Global Fund has made commitments. Okay, one of the Global Fund principle is ensure community at right center of approach. So now it must follow through. The third, we must generate and elevate our own evidence on impact, cost effectiveness, and also right-based approaches. And trans advocate must continue to shape country dialogue, demand space in CCM, community consultation, and influence prioritization in the current grant cycle 7, as well in the future grant cycle. And finally, I would like to reaffirm that trans women are not just vulnerable. We are the leaders, we are the innovators, we are the healers in our communities. We are not asking for charity, we are demanding justice and a seat at the table where decisions are made about our lives. By centering the experience of trans women, we are not only improve health outcomes for our community, but also strengthen the overall health response for everyone. Our liberation is intertwined with the liberation of all. Nothing about us without us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anu, for this very, very powerful statement you have shared with us, and of course, for all your engagement through all these years, starting from 2011, as you mentioned. Also, my notebook is full of these amazing quotes that you said, and I would just like said at the end that you said, we are demanding justice, not charity. That's the fair thing to do, and the Global Fund, as we are working together, should be true to the mission. And we are here in this space, and we're creating also this specific regional space. So we are sure that the voices of women and girls and diversity in the Asia Pacific region are represented widely. And this is the purpose specifically of this feminist and trans feminist perspective group. So happy to have you here, Anu, bringing all these important insights from the transgender women community, which we are very proud also to have you here as our speaker today. And of course, we need to keep on working together and use the evidence you have already also stressed a lot. All three speakers have said that we need to use the information we have. We need to use evidence. We cannot still be quiet about these things. We need to be strategic. And this is the space in which we want to invite all our advocates and partners to think how we can better improve these strategies. I'm going to give the floor to Andrea, and she will continue with the agenda of today's webinar.
Thank you, Angela, and thank you so much, Ika, Mangala, Anu, for your incredible knowledge, for being so generous with us and speaking from the honesty and speaking from this safe space that we want to build in this learning hub. Is precisely that, to build a safe space so we can talk bluntly about challenges, opportunities, and find strategized ways together to, in these challenging times, to fulfill the dreams that we have, that health responses truly meets women and girls in the diversity needs. Now, I really want to take advantage of this opportunity to have three great speakers with and an incredible background to open the floor to all of the participants. If you have questions, if you have doubts regarding how it is to engage with the Global Fund, or when a specific question for Ika, Anu, or Mangala, this is the moment. You can just raise your hand and we will give you the floor. So we just have this moment to share and reflect with our speakers, and then we can move forward to present the strategy, the communication strategy for the Learning Hub and for the upcoming aid replenishment. So I am going to check on the participants if there's any hand raised. I see there's none yet. You can also leave your questions if you have one on the chat. or just take the floor and ask questions.
Can I just listen from your side so I don't have to connect you?
Hi, Jingmi. Hello.
Hello.
You can go
Hi.
ahead.
Hi, sorry I joined late.
Mm-hmm.
Unaware about your email this morning and like I joined late. Apologies. Hello everyone, I'm Chinmay Kumar. I am the project coordinator for Asia Pacific Regional Learning Hub. Our project is supported by the Global Fund under Community Engagement Strategic Initiative. And like, first of all, seeing this email, I was a bit confused mentioning Learning Hub because our name is very similar. Um, but yeah, of course, like, this will be a very important platform for a lot of information for our communities. And like similarly from our side also, we also do the same thing. It's a place from the Asia Pacific Regional Learning Hub, where we specifically share all the information about Global Fund, including the reprioritization which is happening right now and how we support communities, what are the opportunities available um, over there. So not as I joined like just 10 minutes before, I'm not sure about the overall discussion took place. But thank you so much to Anusha as well for like mentioning all the points which are like very important during this time where we are facing this situation from related to funds. But couldn't share more right now, and apologies for like joining in late. And thank you so much for like also sharing this call details with me. Hopefully we can engage more and have a separate discussion as well on how we can collaborate and how we can support each other in terms of giving precise and important information to our communities through our learning hubs respectively. Thank you so much. Sorry, let me turn on my camera.
Thank you, Chingmi. No worries. I think actually you are flagging something that is important to maybe have the moment to accurately um, maybe separate what we do and what the Women for Global Fund Advocacy and Learning Hub has as a mission. So maybe I will just give the floor to Angela so she can just address this, because that is very we have heard before the same concern that you are mentioning, Chimi, but we are glad that you're here, and we are always happy to welcome actually advocates from the region who has a clear vision of gender transformation inside the health responses. But I will give the floor to Angela so she can just address the confusion.
Thank you. Yes, this is very important also because we are the Advocacy and Learning Hub. And this is a space specifically for women and girls in the diversity of the Asia Pacific region, advocating and finding ourselves in this current space to really strategize together. And of course, really happy to connect and build more spaces with the Learning Hub, the CRG Learning Hub. Of course, this is the reason why we also invite you kindly. Very happy to have all our advocates connected, and very important to have this official kind of information flowing. So this is a space for women and girls that we have created. And also, I think it's important for us to let you know that we have also the Latin American, the Caribbean Learning Hub, where we connect also with the other CRG platforms. We have the Francophone and the Anglophone Africa hubs, and we have the MENA region hub. So we were very happy to also connect all the dots because we know this is a global advocacy thing too. So really important to see how we put all this together. And we will be sharing all the slides afterwards with all the participants so we can have a clear idea of how we make this visible and implementing things together. I don't know if there's any other question or comment. I see a question from Anukriti. Do you want to take the floor quickly?
Yes. Well, I can read the question to Anukriti, but I don't know
To
the
whom?
question. Who is
Maybe she can just take the floor yourself.
Hi,
Can we?
Angela. Good morning.
Hello.
I just have one question. So basically, how in every narrative it is like that we're seeing out there, the women are the beneficiaries. Women in all, when I say women, I mean in all the diversity. They are the passive beneficiaries, while they are the ones on the ground leading the change, being the frontline workers, heading lots of grassroots organizations. So how do we shift the narrative for women to be seen as agents of
Did we lose the connection?
Yes, I think she
But I
has.
think we have heard like a bit of the background, and also like I think probably we can give one very short answer from our speakers, because I think it really depends from the perspective, and this is a really nice question, like how we pass to be really active and meaningful actors instead of only beneficiaries. Well, maybe like we can start by Anu. Do you want to give us a brief overview of what do you think, Anu?
Yeah, I hope I get what she wanted, what the question that she asked. So I think we now we've been divided by different groups, keep among the population, be it women, be it trans people, be it young people, be it adolescent, and so on. So, but I think we should join forces together, so as a one power, so that and to ensure that. With the current anti-gender movement being and with all these issues, so I think we can push saying that and we also can highlight about young people. So because now I think many in terms of global health responses, people are interested with young people, and many HIV new transmission HIVs among young people. So we can highlight that, be it young women, be it young trans women. So as a whole, that we can make sure that we can involve in the part of the processes, and also to ensure that people listen to us and also support for our responses. Thank you.
Great answer. I think it's also important to have this collaborative idea of why we're doing this together. Thanks a lot for this response. Maybe, I don't know if Mangala, you have something to add?
Yes. Thanks, Angela. Yeah, so I think, yeah, I also think that, but and I think one of the things that I also quite feel strongly about, and I feel like we need to utilize the opportune time that we have on us, is again, like what I said earlier, um, it's not just about finding that space, but when you are in that space, to have with you the kind of information that people just can't ignore you anymore, you know. And for that, I think a lot of groundwork needs to go into being able to build evidence around the discussions. So one of the things that we have been thinking about, not even going into GC8 yet, but even in all of the reprioritization activities around GC7, is that what is it that we need to go into when we go into these discussions? Because the generic language of like, oh, we are important, we need to be, consulted is no longer important. I mean, it's no longer the only thing that we need. So one of the things then is about, equipping our communities with the kind of data that helps them to, to have this discussion, but also
Mangala, you're muted. Sorry.
was I muted the whole time?
No.
No.
Just we will
Okay,
see.
okay. No, so also in topics like financing, so a lot of the times in the course of the grant making, for example, the time that most our communities get left behind is when it comes to like costing and financing and budgeting. So then equipping ourselves doesn't mean it's everyone, but equipping ourselves, our communities, with the kind of technical knowledge that is needed, so that at the table they just don't become like what someone said earlier, a tokenistic representation of like, oh yeah, we have a trans person, we have a woman. It's no longer that, right? It's that you are then seen beyond the labels that people have put on you, and to what you bring to the table. Like, this person is able to have a discussion around financing. This person is able to have a. So I know it's a bit of a long shot, but it's something that I think we need to work towards. So it's not enough to just be at the table and say, yeah, we need to be at the table, but then to prove why are we at the table, what are we bringing to the table, what are we, how are we contributing in order to be able to then, people can no longer dismiss you. And then sometimes the rhetorics of like, oh yeah, but you were there, yeah, but how were you there? So I'll stop here.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for adding also this important part of how to really pass from this tokenistic to the meaningful participation. And I just like take this word from you, like equipping ourselves also with the technical knowledge we need to represent our own needs as women and diversity is very key. And that's why, again, this space is very fruitful. And just before continuing, almost finishing, I will just want to hear from Ika if you want to add something to what our speakers have mentioned.
No, totally agree with what Anu and also Mangala said around the equipping our community and also having the integration work together as a woman. And also I think want to add on the reframe the narrative because languages matter. When we talk about the woman and also young population, we often use the deficit-based language, for example, like vulnerable, at risk. Maybe we can like start to use the empowering terms such as the leaders or innovators and also decision makers. And I think we can also tell the different story, like amplify a real example of women leading the health intervention, a woman leading the influencing budget and also shaping the policy level. I think that's all for me. Thank you.
Great. I think this was a great addition about language matters. We know it matters. And if we change how we talk about ourselves, it will be really important from this perspective that you say we are the leaders, we are the knowledgeable, we have all the experience, and we are not more vulnerable anymore in these specific things if we need to keep on working on that. Please feel free to also keep on commenting on the chat. We can take more questions afterwards. I will give now the floor to Andrea, who will be sharing about the communication and visibility from what we take forward for the air replenishment and beyond.
And beyond, exactly. Thank you so much for this closure of this part of the webinar, because it's the perfect connection with what we want to share now. As you just mentioned, words matter, and that is actually that is actually what we do. And all that we have is our words and our ability to convince, and that is advocacy, right? So we want to share a little bit of our strategy. We're still building and finalizing the final touch of the strategy for the aid replenishment. But for us was really important to have this webinar with you with the Asia Pacific and finally get to see also the fruits of these past years' work on meeting you on different parts of the world and different conferences, and be able to have this space for women and girls in all of the diversity from the region to talk about the situation and the problems for the region, and find solutions, contextualizing the region, and also sharing this incredible knowledge that we're doing right now. But what I don't want to take a lot of space and time to talk about the air replenishment, because I know some of you like already know, but I just want to um, clarify that this the air replenishment that is starting just the in this year, in the end of this year, it's a 3-year funding cycle. So we know that in this 3-year funding cycle, the 2 first years is years that the Global Fund are concentrated in mobilized financial commitments. So mainly from donor governments that pledge to the fund to support programs to combat HIV, tuberculosis, and malaria, while also strengthening health systems and pandemic preparedness. So the investment case for the air replenishment are to $18 billion of dollars, in which from which the Global Fund partnership could and would save 23 million of lives, avert 400 million infection of or cases, and deliver a return of investment of in $1 of investment, $19 of social and economic well-being. So I wanted to just like put the framework of what the replenishment means and why it's important, especially in times where we're seeing that the GC7 grant cycle is having adaptations. So this 3-year cycle functions like the 2 first year of this 3-year cycle is devoted to collecting the funds and mobilizing financial commitments, and the second and the third year of the cycle is devoted to implement the grants. So we know that we're living in very challenging times where funding are being cut, where our civil society spaces that are being shrink, like Anu very well highlighted. But in these adverse times, we need to be bold in our calls and our actions, and we really need to come with a very coordinated communication and advocacy strategy. And we want to do this across the region, but contextualize the messages, the target, and who are the recipients of our message. So basically, this campaign are going to not only try to fulfill the replenishment and try to push the key government, the key donor governments to pledge to the amount that civil society has called. Not only we want that to be successful in mobilizing the financial commitments to push governments and private sector donors, but also at the same time, and you already mentioned, we want to shift the narrative, right? We want to shift the narrative to confront the gender backlash, and also to shift the narrative that is currently ongoing everywhere, and to place the message that gender transformative health responses are a very good idea, not only for the well-being of women and girls and communities, but also for strengthening health system and more resilient health systems, and at the end of the day, social and economic well-being. So we want to highlight the multiplier effect of gender transformative investment, while we alert on what could be the consequences, the social cost of regressive health and gender policies that we are seeing across the globe. So we want to give the spotlight to the positive stories on gender transformative investment in communities. A few weeks ago, we met Bushra, who is also here in the meeting. She is from Pakistan, and she was telling us all of the concrete impact that the Global Fund investment in harm reduction services are having in Pakistan. And those kinds of stories for us are the stories we want to highlight, and the stories that we want to get across the table with the governments, with the ministries, with the civil society as well, in the countries where, of key donors, and also in implementing countries. We want to use data from what is happening with the gender backlash across the globe, and we want to as well um, strategize together an effective gender transformative communication and advocacy roadmap in this challenging time. So we are mapping strategic priorities and identifying national partners to have like a more targeted and more effective advocacy campaign. And we want to use language that can build bridges in this challenging times, and at the same times that places key gender transformative components. So we know that we are living in times where language matters, and we want to build language that can build bridges and navigate these circumstances. As you can see on our social media, that we're going to share with you QR codes, so you can just scan them and connect with us immediately. What we do on our social media and what our social media is full with is infographics, quote memes, videos, photos from conference, from key advocacy events, statements, briefs, guides. So it's a place where we can share with you in a more direct way the tools that we're producing, the information that we are disseminating, and what are we doing across regions, and how you can also be informed on what's happening in different parts of the world in terms of the current state of the epidemics, but also the landscape, the financial landscape for the programs that we need for our communities. And here are the QR codes for you to just scan them and just to connect through our 4 social media channels. We have Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And on those 4 social media channels, for us, it's very important to be connected with you, to increase the engagement there, since the advocacy, part of the advocacy campaign, social media, and the communications campaign is very social media center, because we know it is important to get to women and girls in all of our diversity, to young women in all of our diversity in our countries that could potentially become advocates like you become one day. And we need that. We need to invite, we need to to encourage people to join. And finally, the cake of this webinar is to introduce our learning hub. It's a Women4GlobalFund Asia Pacific Learning and Advocacy Hub. It's a space through WhatsApp where we really wanted to be like a safe space. We want to be a space where we know each other, so we can just share in this important space. We can share information, we can share opportunities, we can share mentorship programs, and important information about not only the current state of the replenishment, the GC7 grant adaptations, but also all of the services, programs, and dimensions that are also connecting the 3 epidemics like HIV, malaria, and TB from this intersectional perspective, right? So we can also share information, news, opportunities around sexual and reproductive rights, gender-based violence, harm reduction. So we want to be, we want to create this space where gender transformation, where gender transformative health responses are the baseline, right? So we really want you there. We're really honored the quality of advocates that you are. And for us, these spaces, more than quantity, is about the quality of the advocates that we have, the quality of your capacity to mobilize your networks, your organizations, and the capacity that you have to be on the table. And to be on the table, like Mangala said, and get to the table all of our demands, especially the Asia Pacific demands. So please scan the QR code. Also, in the chat, I think you can also have the link. Yes, it's the link in the chat where you can just click on there, join us directly in the WhatsApp Learning Hub, and we can meet you on the other side to keep strategizing and keep connecting to collaborate in these difficult times again. Finally, I want to share with you as well 2 QR codes extra. So you can join us as Women for Global Fund advocates. We are a movement. We are right now 327 advocates in 75 countries, but we want to grow. And we want to grow just to keep our mission, which is we want a world where all women and girls in all of our diversity have access to quality services, health services, and HIV, TB, and malaria services. And finally, the QR code for our newsletter. We send by monthly a newsletter with all of the updates of our work, all of the updates about Global Fund processes and grants. And we also disseminate key information from our partners and friends. So please also scan the QR code for to join our newsletter. And if you want to collaborate with us further, if you want to think together a mentorship and to organize a mentorship together, if you want to collaborate with us to apply to grant opportunities, if you want to collaborate with us in a social media campaign that you have in mind, or you have a story to pitch, please, 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 we were more than happy to have a call with you and to leverage our capacities to advocate effectively, because that's at the end of the day what our mission. So please scan the QR and just fill the form if you want to collaborate with us. We are going to, be in touch with you, because the campaign that I just showed you is about to start in the next month, and we really want your inputs. We really want to visualize your voice. We really want to um, um, put your needs and your knowledge and your demands on the table and work with you. So thank you very much for being part of this webinar, for being here this morning. We know that separating a 1 hour of our time or our busy agendas, it's really hard. So we really appreciate this participation and opportunity to connect. I want to finish here, but I also want to give another round of give an opportunity to have another round of questions and comments. So please, if you have any comment, any doubt about the communication, the advocacy, or around how to connect with us, this is the moment before we can all go and continue our journey today. Perhaps we are very clear with everything.
I think there are like many QRs, so we will be very happy to share all these QRs also with you and the links. And thank you for the ones that are already joining. I can see it from my phone already. We will be starting very soon with all the activities. Extremely happy about all these connections and the presence of you as very amazing advocates that you are. So also happy to connect afterwards. Please feel free to just open the mic and comment whatever you think it's important for us to move forward. We'll be sharing all this information